With the holidays upon us, many are thinking about gifts for that magic book lover in their life. It might be a spouse, a child, a friend, or even you. So in this episode of Erudite Magic, I'm going to share with you some gift ideas. Let's not confuse this episode with the best of 2023, that one is still coming. The key difference is that the books I'm about to share with you may not be from 2023, but they are books I would recommend to someone and are available as of December 2023. So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to organize this video by what you're willing to spend per item. I'll put timestamps down in the description below, so feel free to jump around to whatever it is that you're looking to spend. The buckets will be less than $25, $26 to $50, $51 to $75, $76 to $100, over $100, and within each bucket, I'm going to break it down into beginner, intermediate, and advanced. I won't have much time for commentary on each of the books, so I'll try to link to some of the reviews that I've done on a few of these titles. And as always, if you have questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them. You'll probably hear many titles that appeal to you, and I know that you have choices when it comes to where to shop for magic books. But my personal recommendation is the sponsor of this week's video, Don's Magic and Books. Don has a plethora of magic books on his website, all of the latest and greatest books that you're going to see out there, but also some older gems that are a little bit harder to find. And the latter category is really where he specializes. I check Don's website weekly, and I hope you do too. When I'm doing that, I'm constantly seeing an inflow of books that are basically out of print. There are only a few copies, and sometimes they're harder to get a hold of. I love seeing that because I know that someone out there is going to get a great deal on a book they've been looking for. If you want that to be you, then use the link down in the description below to start shopping with Don's Magic and Books this week. You'll quickly qualify for free shipping if you live in the United States, and I know that once you get a taste of Don's excellent customer service, you'll never look back. Check out his shop as you're searching for holiday deals this season. Let's get into this list. First up is the less than $25 bucket. This is going to be a lot of booklets or pamphlets, smaller books, and while they're often overlooked, they tend to have some hidden gems. Beginner's books are going to be one of the biggest sections of this bucket. That's because a lot of older classic texts like the Dover reprints are very inexpensive and highly recommended. I'm talking about books like the Carl Fulves books, The Royal Road to Card Magic if you know someone who's looking to get into sleight of hand with cards. Magic and Showmanship by Henning Nelms is a great little book of theory. Scarny on card tricks, practical mental magic, all of these have dozens and dozens of tricks that are pretty easy to perform. And although it has an older writing style, that really doesn't change the impact of the magic. So if you don't want to spend a lot or are looking for some neat stocking stuffers, I highly recommend the Dover series of magic books. Moving into books in this category that are targeted more to the intermediate performer, I'm talking about things like the Ron Bauer study series. They're highly focused on one specific effect. They're going to give you a script, humor, all of the detailed moves. In short, everything you'll need to know and understand to be performing a classic of magic. These typically retail for approximately $15 to $20 each, so pick a few where the subject matter resonates with you. Another series that's relatively low cost but high impact comes to mind in this category, and that's Jim Steinmeyer's Impossibilities. Jim Steinmeyer has built a tremendous reputation within the magic world, designing illusions, understanding and discussing history of magic, and in this series he's giving some relatively easy to do magic tricks using some very devious methods. This series could qualify for a beginner because a beginner would probably have no trouble performing these effects. I just think that they're better off to study after you have a firm foundation of classic sleights and other things like that. And again, these booklets typically go for around $15 to $20 each. On the more advanced side of the under $25 bucket, I'm talking about books that probably don't deserve to be on your shelf until you have a more robust library. My recommendations in this category would be Letters from Juan. While I didn't find tremendously compelling, I think it's always worth studying a master that you appreciate and like. So if you like Juan Tamari's magic and his style resonates with you, then I think you should pick these up. Each one of the Letters from Juan books, I believe, retails for $25. The other series that I recommend in this $25 and under category are the Astonishing Essays by Vanishing Ink. My personal favorite is the Rob Zabrecki one because it just helps frame so much what your characters should do, how to develop your act, what should be important as you move forward with your magic. There are 10 different authors and 10 different subjects, so you're sure to find something that will appeal to you, and each one of those are also $25. Moving right along into the $25 to $50 range, for the beginner, there are several subtle card creation books. These were published posthumously by Nick Trost. He laid out a ton of ideas about simple, easy-to-do card tricks, and each of the chapters covers a specific genre of magic, whether that be gambling, pinochle tricks, four-ace tricks, etc. There are 9 of the subtle card creation books in total, and the series is now complete. A few of them go for the upper end of this range at $50, and I definitely think there are a lot of great tricks in there for beginners who want to learn to do some devious card tricks. Along the same lines, the Card College Light series, which is light, lighter, and lightest, also have self-working card tricks, and each of these are available for around $30 each. As you work your way through sleight of hand and learning different techniques, these books take the opposite approach and look less at sleight of hand, more at subtlety, self-working, that type of thing, so that you can get your feet under you and experience what it's like to entertain an audience. And if you're a complete beginner, I do recommend Maximum Entertainment 2.0. This book retails for $40 and will teach you some of the fundamentals of being your own director, improving your magic act, the kinds of things that you should be looking at, paying attention to, and fixing up. I've discussed more about this book in this video, so check it out if you want to learn a little bit more. Intermediate recommendations in this category are The Buena Vista Shuffle Club by my friend Matt Baker. If you are into memdeck magic or just getting started, this is a pretty cool way to learn some really neat effects with a memorized deck, although half of the book doesn't really require a memorized deck. Some of it uses coins, card tricks that don't require a mem deck. But if you are starting to journey into memorized deck magic, this could be a great next step type of book. What Erudite Magic list would be complete without a David Regal recommendation or two? So the Constant Fooling 1 and 2 books also pop up on this list for their variety of different types of magic. There's close-up stuff with cards, mice, coins, the barrel full of monkey games. Yes, absolutely, there is an effect using that with a borrowed ring. Anyway, if you're looking for things that are off the beaten path with a very fun premise and a tightly written script, then each one of those books can be had for around $40. Finally, in the intermediate section of this bucket, I recommend Woody Aragon's A Book in English. Again, this is another one of those bridge books where some of the effects require you to know a mem deck, and others are just card tricks that you can do with any old deck of cards. It's a fun book, and it introduces you to some of that Spanish style if you haven't had a taste of that. On the advanced end of the $25 to $50 range, these are, again, more specialized. I'm talking about a book like The 5 Points in Magic by Juan Tamariz, which is actually one of my favorite Juan Tamariz books. He's using the human body and the 5 points of the human body to tell you what you should do to direct audience attention and in general have better, more effective presentations for your magic. It's all theory, but it is practical theory. Designing Miracles by the late Darwin Ortiz is a very digestible look at making your magic more impactful. Overall, the theory behind what makes something work and how you should design the flow of your magic for maximum impact on your audiences. And if you want to wander way off the beaten path after you've firmly established your library, The Wondrous World of Pickpocketing by Hector Mancha is a really neat way to introduce other aspects to your magic via kind of allied art, theatrical pickpocketing. If you want to increase your spending a little bit to the $51 to $75 category, this is the biggest bucket I feel like you're going to find magic books that are published today. On the beginner end of this spectrum, I mentioned the Subtle Card Creations books. Book number 1 was reprinted not that long ago and includes more than most of the other Subtle Card Creations books. It has an index of sleights in the back, which teach you a lot of the basic things you'll need to know to perform Nick Trost easy card miracles. So it also has a little bit higher price tag than many of the others. It clocks in at $55. And if you're going to start somewhere with the Subtle Card Creation series, I do recommend book 1. Destination Zero by John Bannon is another great, easy to do card magic book, clocking in at $55. And if you don't know John Bannon magic, treat yourself to some clever thinking and a broad variety of different card plots, with simple yet effective ways to perform them. At risk of sounding like this is super card heavy because, well, magic books tend to be, Steve Beam's Semi-Automatic Card Trick series is another great resource. And while several of the early volumes are now out of print on their own, you can pick up volumes like 6 through 12 for about $65 each. Each one of these is thick with lots of easy to do card tricks with a lot of different presentations. And if you haven't read Steve Beam, you just have to know that he's a very funny guy and it translates well into his writing style. You're going to find devious magic, but you're also going to laugh and enjoy reading the books, which is also important. In the intermediate category, I got a lot here for you. I recommend Offbeat by Nick DeFott, which was actually my 2022 book of the year. You can get his book by Squash Publishing for $55. I'm not sure how much is left in this print run, so if you're thinking about it, now's probably a good time to get it. I don't know if it'll be reprinted or not, but there's a lot of fun comedy magic pieces in here, and it's more than just card tricks. Unless you've been living under a rock, you're aware that Wayne Dobson just released his Legacy series, and each individual book can be purchased for $60. I reviewed them last week, and you can see that review here. But books 2 and 3 have a lot of great stand-up and close-up magic that has been performed for audiences around the world. Wayne was a very highly comedic performer, and you're getting his full scripts. Plus, if you check out that review, you'll see there's a lot of inspiration to be drawn from his story. Cornucopia is another book by the legend of sleight of hand, John Carney. Has been out of print for a long time, is now back in print. I also did a review of that not too long ago, and it's $60. A great recommendation for someone who's serious about sleight of hand and wants to improve their technique, as well as learn a bunch of different tricks, some cards, some coins, some money, cups and balls. In short, classic magic. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Mastering the Art of Magic by Eugene Berger. This one's $65. It is a collection of some of his older booklets that were published in the 80s, collected into one book in the early 2000s, and then reprinted this year by Kaufman and Company. Continuing with the theme of reprints this year, the Barry Richardson trilogy. If you're into mentalism or you like stand-up magic that can be paired well with a message or presented to a corporate audience, you can't go wrong with these books. I've officially reviewed books 1 and 2, and I've performed multiple pieces from both. You can get them for $70 each. Unreal by Bruce Bernstein is a mentalism classic. Bruce Bernstein is kind of an underground legend in the world of mentalism from Chicago. This is a Squash Publishing compilation of a lot of his older stuff that he's put out. It's all highly effective, and again, I perform a lot of this in my own work, so if you're a mentalist, I do recommend you check out Unreal. For something completely off the beaten path, Bob Farmer's Bammo Flim Flam Conglomeration compiles most of the columns that he wrote for both Genie and Magic magazine, having to do with bar bets and stunts. And as I pointed out in my review, this is something that can be mixed really well with magic, especially for those people who constantly want to know how you did something. These little bar bets and stunts, magic ancillary, I would call it, I think are a good change of pace. That book is fairly meaty and will set you back $75. Another David Regal alert. Approaching and Interpreting Magic are two of his latest books that cover a ton of ground. He's got all kinds of tricks in there, as you would imagine from David Regal, with card stuff, coin work, mentalism, all with great scripts, because if you don't know, David Regal is a professional script writer, so when he's coming up with clever premises for magic tricks, they typically have a really awesome plot that goes with them, with built-in laughs, and all of the timing and beats just feel right. He also rounds those books out with some interviews with magic luminaries. They're each $75. And rounding out the intermediate section of this bucket is the Art of Astonishment trilogy. Each one of the books retails for about $60. I understand that Volume 3 is becoming harder to find. You can still get Volume 1 and Volume 2, and Paul Harris is just a king of close-up style magic. There's a lot of funny things in there. Most of it is pretty easy to do, and I really recommend these books. They've shown up on multiple lists of mine, and I've even done a study guide if you're interested in knowing what particular tricks I recommend. On the advanced end of this, let's fly. We've got Scripting Magic 1 and 2. Each one of those are $60. And yes, they'll teach you tricks, but actually the most important aspect of these books is that they're teaching you how to present those tricks to an audience by laying out a script. How do things look from your audience's point of view, seeing the magic, and how do you make that more effective? Where are my history buffs at? Classic Correspondence from Egyptian Hall Museum by Mike Caveney, volumes 1 through 3. I absolutely love these books. The premise is these are letters written by historical magicians to someone else. There's always a little lesson to be learned from it, and Mike Caveney sets the scene by explaining who these magicians are, why they were important, what the dynamic was between them, and why this letter means anything. Really easy to read, short little chapters, and I just love learning from beautiful historical magic books, although it seems like not everybody does. Totally Out of Control by Chris Kenner. If you know anything about magic, Chris Kenner is one of the people who helps David Copperfield create all of the magic that he's done. He hasn't written a lot and hasn't done a lot of lectures, so when he speaks, people want to listen. This book has been out of print for a long time and highly sought after in the secondary market. Richard Kaufman has reprinted it this year, along with several others I've already mentioned, so you can check that out for $75. In the $76 to $100 camp, beginner books, there just aren't as many that cost this much that are geared towards the beginner. But if you can get your hands on any of the Harry Lorraine Classic Collection books, I know Don has had a few on his website. Those are great books for a beginner because they don't require a lot of sleight of hand, and Harry Lorraine is a great author and teacher. Each one of those will set you back about $80, but contain collections of many of the books that he published in the past, dozens and dozens of practical practical, impromptu card tricks. Moving right along into the intermediate section, Coin Magic by Richard Kaufman was reprinted this year and is considered by many to be the next step after you've mastered some of the basics from something like Bobo's New Modern Coin Magic. You'll learn a lot of really different coin tricks that you won't learn in some of those more basic texts from some of the real masters, including Jeff Lotta, David Roth, Saul Stone, and others that were popular in that New York magic scene when this book was printed. Juan Tamariz makes another appearance here with Mnemonica. I personally use the Aronson stack, but if you're trying to learn a mem deck, Mnemonica teaches you the stack using a mnemonic. It's very popular with magicians worldwide, so if you're trying to speak the language of memorized deck, Mnemonica is probably the most popular language spoken there, and there are lots and lots of tricks that are stack independent, so whether you use Aronson, Mnemonica, the Aragon stack, the Redford stack, whatever, there are lots of stack independent tricks you'll find. It is a meaty book, but it will set you back $80. Coming back to the New York magic scene and Harry Lorraine, if you can get your hands on the Apocalypse volumes, I know I've seen that Apocalypse #2 is still available. This is a magazine that ran from the late 70s to around the year 2000 and published all of the greatest stuff that was being talked about at the time. It is a periodical, so you're going to get a lot of variety, a lot of different people who contributed to the magazine, and you'll find iterations of different routines as you progress through each month. I love it for its variety of close-up and stand-up material. And because Harry Lorraine was the editor, it's again very easy to read, very easy to understand, and you will be doing these tricks. Let's take a look at some advanced books in this category. Expert Coin Magic is another reprint, and if you've already mastered Bobo and then you've mastered Coin Magic, this is the magic of the late David Roth, probably one of the premier coin magic workers in the world. If you're into those circles of coin magic workers, you're definitely going to recognize a lot of classics from this book. It does fall in between kind of the intermediate and advanced. I put it in the advanced camp because if you have Coin Magic, which I referenced in the intermediate category, then you already have some David Roth coin tricks as well as others. This is more focused on just David Roth stuff, so I think it comes later in your magic library. The Books of Wonder by Tommy Wonder and Stephen Minch is a 2-volume set costing $90, but Tommy was one of the greatest thinkers on the subject of magic, and he's holding nothing back in all of these essays and then the tricks that explain how he has applied his thinking. If you ask any magicians kind of my age or older, a lot of them will tell you that they were heavily influenced by these books when they first read them, and they read them over and over because Tommy's just such a great thinker and a very clear communicator. Let's finish this off with the $100 plus category. If you're a beginner, I definitely have to recommend the Tarbell Course in Magic, the whole set. These are 8 official volumes that cover almost every branch of magic. Like the late Denny Haney said, it's in Tarbell. So if you want to know something about magic, it's got mentalism, sponge magic, silk magic, rope magic, dove magic. It's easy to see why it should be on your shelf, and you can get the entire set for about $250. I mentioned earlier in this series the Semi-Automatic Card Trick series by Steve Beam, and in that section I mentioned that the first few volumes aren't really available anymore. They are, but only if you buy the entire set of 1 through 12 directly from Steve Beam at stevebeam.com. The set will set you back $700, so we are way over the $100 mark, but if you want a lifetime of easy-to-do card tricks, this is a fantastic series. In the intermediate camp of $100 plus, the Wayne Dobson trilogy that just came out is a beautiful set of books and has a ton of great magic. You get a pretty good deal on buying all 3 books because I mentioned earlier, it's a trilogy, and the first volume is his memoirs, which I think is very inspirational and helps you understand the kind of magic, where he's coming from, what drives him, and what makes him so passionate. Anyway, with each book being $60, obviously if you're getting all 3 for $125, that's a pretty good deal. Another really great collection for the intermediate magic book lover is Talk About Tricks. This was a column in Magic Magazine compiled by Joshua J. He got tricks from all around the world and all kinds of different creators. Ossie Wynn, Jay Sankey, Richard Sanders. The list goes on and on and on. It's a lot of close-up magic, but there's plenty of stand-up stuff too. It's just a huge, heavy set, and I'm not sure if this will be reprinted or not, so if you're interested in a copy, now's the time to get it before it goes out of print. It does ring in at $250. I really only have one recommendation in the advanced section of this, and that's the Syzygy 1 through 6 collection at $125. This is another collection of a periodical put out by Leah Earl and focused specifically on mentalists. But if you already have a great library and are looking to add some interesting mental magic and mentalism, I happen to like the way a lot of these tricks are written written up. They're very practical, very fun, and it flies a little bit below the radar, so I thought I'd toss it out here. Guys, that's what I've got for my holiday list. I hope this is helpful to you, but certainly if there are other recommendations that you have or you want to know more about certain titles, drop a comment or a question down below. I'll do my best to answer it. As always, I appreciate you watching. Until next time, keep reading.